Thank you for listening to the Dog Trainers Podcast, a podcast created by dog trainers for dog trainers, or anyone who's ever fallen in love with man's best friend.
Number one, I don't think it's that some of the newer trainers don't want to be honest. I just think they don't know how to have that conversation. He's doing well, but because then they get nervous. They're afraid the client doesn't want to hear bad news. They're afraid the client, but also the comfort level associated with just the confidence, or which came from the skill or just repetition or whatever,
or the knowledge,
or the knowledge to be able to call the person and be like, whoa, listen, this is part of the process, and you not freak out because she's already freaking out, and and just letting them know this is normal, as is a dog with very deep-seated issues regarding an individual. I just sent one home. I just sent he was a little sheepadoodle. His name was Hubert, and he was super sharp, but man, he was horrible with his mom, and I mean horrible. And it was extremely noticeable because Brent and I have a friend, Blake. Her name is Julia. She's a trainer, and she's very good. And I hired her on. Luckily, I've been busy enough that I needed some help. And obviously, she's female. This guy Hubert comes to the house, and he's barking, I mean, incessantly. So I get him to stop in a couple days. She shows up day 3. Yep. And it's right back at it. And I'm like, whoa, and anytime he sees her, I could have them outside. I could have them inside. He can already be in her arms. Mm-hmm. And he's just going, he just cannot get enough. Mm-hmm. He's about to explode.
He's a ladies' man.
Right. Well, and she currently has another job. So she works here part-time. So on the day she's not here, that man is a joy. Mm-hmm. And then she gets here and he's right back at it. And I'm like, what's going, because all the while he's getting further and further in training. So he looks good. But then she shows up and I'm like, what is going on with you? And it's interesting to see. I was texting the mom the exact same thing. I was like, man, and I was asking her questions do you carry him around everywhere? Do you do this? Do you do that? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, can I show you something? And I take a little video and I'm like, Hubert, sit, Hubert down, Hubert this, Hubert that, good boy, good boy, good boy, good boy. Hey, Julia, Hubert, sit, Hubert down. And he just, and so she's like, wow, what is that? And I'm like, I really want you to understand. Number one, he's doing well. I'm happy with how he looks. You just saw me do it. He's looking all right. There is a difference between obedience and relationship, and how the dog feels versus what they know. And, and where his state of mind is according to, like we talked about earlier, what the conditioned response has been, what works for him in that situation. If I want attention, I'll nag mom and she gives me the attention. So I'm going to nag mom. Why wouldn't I try that with Julia? The only woman I've ever done it with. It works 100% of the time. So it was fascinating not only to see the dog go through it, because we had 4 other dogs, but he was and all of them had that to an extent, but he was by far boom. Male to female was a stark contrast. But it was fascinating to navigate the mom, because just like she reminds me of Marmar. Very sweet, very intelligent, in her field, successful, very well, but with that dog, my God, she it's hard to get her to be firm. And it was fascinating to I think back sometimes about would I have been able to have this conversation with her 4 years ago, 5 years ago? Probably not successfully anyway. And maybe she'd freak out and maybe would just pick up the dog. If this situation happened to you, Brent, 7 years ago, she probably would have just came and got the dog. But now over time, you have the words, how
I've had those clients before.
Me too.
Before I had the words, before I had the confidence, before I had the,
right. So I'm sorry to go off on the tangent. I wanted to tie Blake into it. I just wanted to hear a little bit about that thought. And I was going to tie it one more time to jiu-jitsu with I noticed in videos. Blake, here's a question for you, bro. Who are your favorite high level players if you watch tournaments on YouTube and stuff like that?
If I watch
a tournament online
for jiu-jitsu?
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot. So I don't know if you are familiar with Flow Grappling, but I have a Flow Grappling account.
Okay.
And obviously, anytime there are competitions and stuff, I'm trying to watch that. But I am under Marcelo Garcia Academy in New York City. So any of those guys, Mateus, there's 2 Mateuses, there's Denise, Lutez, and there's so many black belts, Marcos, these guys that are just absolutely incredible. Obviously, Marcelo, all these guys Bernardo when he used to compete. Obviously, you watch the Danaher Death Squad. You're watching Gordon and trying to see geez, who's gonna take this dude out. you're watching all of them. Oh man, there's so many names that I can like list off, and then I'm watching like the fight sports guys over here in Florida and things like that. So I'm watching a lot of these high level guys and just watching their different skill sets.
Here's why I'm asking you this question. Out here, I'm lucky enough to have Gustavo Dantes out in Tempe.
Okay.
And we also have a 10th Planet gym, like not too far from me here.
Okay.
A lot of my favorite guys, Keenan Cornelius, a lot of bottom players like the Meow brothers and stuff like that. So
in New York. Okay.
Oh, are they? Those guys are sick, man. Okay. The reason why I'm asking you this question, I love to watch in particular, because I'm like a bottom game player. I love my rubber guard. I
knew you were a bottom.
So yeah. So I love to watch them compete because I can watch the same match over and over and over and over the period of like months. And I'll see something new this time, and then months later I'll still see something new this time, and it's the same match, and it could be like an 8-minute match, nothing, right? Nothing, and especially considering the time they don't spend on the ground. So what I'm getting at is, when we're talking about the type of skill set, like having these conversations with owners, being comfortable enough, calm enough, confident enough to be transparent, asking for time, letting them know what's really going on, all that good stuff, which is absolutely important to do. In jiu-jitsu and in dog training, I notice someone can like tell you this and give you this lesson. I can see the Meow brothers perform a crazy like Berimbolo to leg lock, but I don't intake the information until I have the necessary foundational information to make that information click. So I can watch one match and it'll teach me forever and ever and ever, because I'm slowly getting good enough to be able to like
dissect that match,
decode it. You know what I mean? Yeah, right. To dissect it and really learn from it. And that's what I wanted to hear you riff on a little bit.
Yeah. First off, I didn't mention Gianni Grippo. If you like bottom game and like Berimbolos, like that dude's a wizard. There's a couple of other guys too, Nick Salas and
I know who Nick. Yeah, Nick Salas is a dope one. Here.
Yeah, so he's a Marcelo guy too. He's
okay.
Other, Mikey. How do you pronounce his name? Mushemi, or I got to get back to you with that. But I think that the biggest thing is understanding that in this industry, your job as a dog trainer is more than just working with the dog.
Right.
So your skill set, as you find yourself in these situations, or you rewatch the match, or you end up in the same situation over and over and over again, you start to see the dynamic or the different aspects of what our job actually is.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's like working with the dog. I have to articulate to the human. I have to feel more comfortable being transparent here, showing my work. I have to, have the harder conversation with the client about, hey, listen, with this aspect of the relationship, I have the dog doing these things and you don't have that. So we have to focus on, okay, why or what did I do to get to being able to do X, Y, and Z? Right. When in the beginning, this dog was acting the same exact way that
he was with you.
Exactly way he was with you, but I got here. Why? Yes, I am at X, Y, and Z, but I started with A, B, and C. This is where we're going to start you. So it's really understanding that, like, every single session or every single board and train or every single client, your starting point and your session's not going to be the same with them, because the dog's going to be different. The relationship's going to be different. So you start realizing, man, like, as I find myself in these scenarios, oh, this is just like this last one. So it's almost like rewatching a match. You know, I have to, what I would have done better with this client is I would have focused more on this, or I would have done that. So the goal is just to keep learning. And as you rewatch or you find yourself in this situation, what can you do better? Or even if at the end you go, yeah, that was pretty good, but I felt like I could have improved. Then you ask yourself, oh, okay, what will I do differently next time? Or what can I change? How can I articulate this better? How can I explain? How can I jump into this conversation that I was too nervous to? And you just try to get better. The goal has to be, how can you improve and help the dog and help the human better than you are currently?
Is it fair to consider that process right there, like safe failing?
Failing safe.
Failing safely.
Yeah, well, of course. It has to be. Like, you're always, that's actually a really good question. Failing safely in that situation. Yeah, because I guess you're always at the end of the day helping the dog.
Right.
Right. And you're helping them. But could you have done better? Is there something that you could have done differently? So I think the answer to that hopefully is always yes. Right. So we continue to learn. And that's, I think that's one thing that is important, is we continue to strive to get better and know that what we're doing isn't the best. We might be doing the work, but we could do better. We could learn from this person. We could learn from that person, even if what they're doing is different, and just take a little bit of that. In a way, it is like failing safely, right? Like, you know, you're doing a good job, but 5 years from now, you're probably going to be doing way better than we are today.
Right. With the exact same circumstance.
With the exact same circumstance. And you go, yeah, like I got this, but now, geez, 5 years ago, had I known this, I would have been able to help Sparky and that owner even better, even though I know they're at a good place now, and so on and so forth. And maybe some of those dogs, they aren't at a good place now. Like who knows? And you go, that sucks. But it's part of the game. And I think as long as you know your intentions and your job and your morals and your ethics are coming from a good place, you're never really going to hurt the dog or the person or make things worse. Could you make things better? But if your intention and your heart is in the right place, like, it's okay. The thing that gets a little bit scary for newer trainers, if I was to offer any advice, is just be careful with online and social media and the feedback and the critics, because that shit's gonna come whether you're a wizard or not. Like
you know what, man? I'm gonna ask you the same question I ask all the people with like big online followings. We notice with everybody that we've had on, including a couple people we have yet to have on, but we've already started the conversation, all of which are really successful online, and all of them are dog trainers. I ask them, is there ever a time where the like YouTube experts, quote unquote, ever get to you with the criticism? And I've always been amazed, because every single person says yes. Every single person, almost without fail. I think the only person who didn't say anything about it was like Michael Ellis. Because he was just kind of before
about Michael Ellis.
Well, and also they're like
really
people. No, they do, but
they're
Michael,
silly.
No, but Michael Ellis, what he told us was he was just kind of like before that time. Like, they've got social media, but he's not on his phone. You know, whereas
he doesn't have content like that.
Right, but Tommy Davis, Tyler Muto, you know, Jeff, we've talked to him. He hasn't been on yet, but we've spoken to him. Sean O'Shea.
Larry said he gets more beef. He has more beef with other balanced trainers.
Right, but here was my
positive.
But here's what always amazed me.
Jonas Black.
Not that everybody has their opinions online, because it seems like that's what online's freaking for these days, right? Everybody will watch a match of these two amazing jiu-jitsu players and point out every little thing they did wrong.
Yeah.
But what really amazes me, though, is that it works. All of them get tired of it. All of them, almost all of them without fail, have gotten so tired of it, they were weary of being on the podcast, bro. For that reason. We've even had people who were weary about being on the podcast because they didn't want us to catch their backlash just for having them on, man. So my question to you is I know you get hate because everybody does. Does it ever bother you? And would you still agree that it's important for newer trainers, put yourself out there, you know, because social media can really help your business?
Well, the social media helps for so much. Like, you have to be able to put yourself out there, because that's today's yellow pages. If you're not putting yourself out there,
you don't exist. You don't exist.
You could just be helping more people. And like, some people will say, oh, like, if you're good on social media, then like you're bad with this or whatever. And it's like, it's just not the case. Like, those same people are hiring social media people and then paying for advertisement. Like, you know what I mean? So the thing that is most important for me is that when you're putting yourself out there, you are going to take the criticism, and some of it you're going to learn from. Some of it you're going to go, oh shit, I could be doing this better. And some of it you're going to watch back and you're going to go, oh man, like I look how much I've grown. And there's just so much benefit to putting yourself out there, not just from a business perspective, you know, with reaching out more people and getting more business, but you have to be able to do it. And as far as the critics go, I try to use it. So the only thing that gets to me and maybe bothers me on occasion is that I can't respond to everybody, because like, I don't have the time and I wouldn't be able to do other things. Like, in a weird way, I wish that I could. I think we would love to do it. So the only thing I'll do is if there's a recurring or common thing, I go, oh, I'll just talk about that. Or I'll just shoot a video about that, or I'll just do that. So you turn it into content. You know what I mean? Or you try to benefit from it in some way, shape, or form, especially if it's like a common one that like you can articulate and explain and go, no, this is that. It's not answering every single individual person. It's just having the content. And then letting people learn and absorb and do what they're going to do from there, because all that stuff helps you with attracting the right type of client anyway.
Right.
It helps you with like pushing people away and doing that. So at the end of the day, it helps more than it hurts, even the criticism that is not so constructive.
And before I had initially cut you off, you were beginning to explain why social media still is something where you need to be careful. So talk a little bit more about that. You were talking. I think what you were getting to, it sounded it was for dog trainers following other dog trainers. Make sure you follow people who know what they're doing, type thing.
Well, the thing is, you just have to have an open mind, because there's a lot to consider in regards to what they are doing and what type of trainer they are. Like, there's a lot of different types of doctors. There's a lot of different types of trainers, and some people are geared more on like, I'm focusing on this type of thing, or I'm doing this exercise for this specifically. So it's like, how can you keep an open mind and go, all right, I don't do that. I'm not doing scent work with the dog, but how can I use this game and maybe help with the rehabilitation of this and do that? So it's just really keeping an open mind. And like, if I'm going to learn from, I don't know what you want to call it, like a sport dog trainer, or a heavy-handed militant trainer, or a happy-go-lucky, like positive reinforcement only trainer, or a trick-based trainer, or this, it's like, don't just learn and observe it, learn the good stuff, learn the bad stuff, and then just try to extract something that might be helpful for what it is that I do. Because you also have to consider environment changes, and someone's approach might be different because they live in the middle of nowhere and they have open space and open fields. And then in New York City, we don't have that. And there's an urban environment, and
it's all sidewalks.
So there's just so many things that will vary and will differ. And not everybody on the internet is going to understand that. So you have to be careful with social media in that regard, where people will understand what you're doing and why you're doing it, and you might not understand their side of things. So just be careful, because the rest of the world is not necessarily the same as the world that you live in, or the world and the circumstances that your client lives in. Yeah. So I'm not sure if that was the direction that I was heading in, or whether you were talking about before, but you do have to be careful with social media and how it stalls you and your growth. I will tell you this one story. So when I first started training, I was filming myself because I was walking dogs and I wanted to go more into the training aspect. But a lot of the dogs that I was walking were problematic, and the turnaround to getting them to me being able to leash them, to walking with other dogs, and so on and so forth, like that was a video that needed to be filmed. So I started filming this stuff, not really expecting anybody watching aside from potential clients. The moment that I caught wind of like bigger names watching my content, or certain trainers and stuff watching that, I started going, oh, like people watch me. So I want to make sure that I'm not doing the wrong thing, or I'm not being viewed as an amateur. So I stopped being creative. And I started focusing on what the right way
their attention, to get their attention, or
you know what it
not
actually
to look stupid.
did? It made me a bland trainer, and all of a sudden I became the same as everybody else, because I didn't want to do it the wrong way or mess up, or have the gatekeepers worry about what I thought. So it killed who I was. The moment I said I got to forget about this, do my thing, and guess what? Mistakes are going to happen. Like the mistakes are going to be there, whatever, who cares? The majority of what I'm doing is not for them anyway. It's for
your clients.
Your clients. Still going to help. Like whatever. Like if you're spending so much time trying to be perfect with your media, and don't get me wrong, like you want it to be the best that you can, but like it's going to be flawed, and you're going to get better, and like that's inevitable. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about the critique on that end. If it's still going to be helpful to somebody, and you're still going to help a dog or a person at the end of the day, that's all that matters.
So that exactly that is kind of what what I've heard from the other trainers, and that's like you answered the question, which was like, that's kind of the downside is you,
yes,
and it's fine, but like if I,
points.
And it's fine, like, if the question wasn't, if the answer is no, then that's fine. I just, it kind of circled around anyway of like, that is the potential downside of social media. You get into keeping up with the Joneses, and it's like, because you want to look like a professional, you either don't do something or you don't put out content at all, or like, the analysis paralysis of it all. And it's like the whole thing, perfect is the enemy of done type thing. So
it's helpful. It's all helpful. Like something as simple as like tying your shoe, man.
Yep.
Like, you think everyone and their mother knows how to do it? a lot of people do, but you put on a video. I bet if you YouTube right now tying your shoe, I bet you like
or how to make a PB&J, you know, like
it's gonna have millions of views. People can still benefit from simple stuff. And the truth, like when it comes to nerding out, like if we really love doing this, we want to continue to learn like more advanced stuff. But when it comes to the average pet dog owner, they need simplicity and they need results.
Well, and I'll tell you what, I agree with you. I just looked it up. 3.4 million views. How to tie your shoes. Yeah, 3.4 million views. Simplicity, results. The other thing that I noticed is you have to like your trainer. Because from a trainer's perspective, I watch other dog trainers on YouTube. I learned a lot from other dog trainers on YouTube. And I've been in the situation, I'm sure all of us have, where you can watch the same like content, how to work, front to heel with food, how to work place command with e-collar, how to work whatever. It's the same like lesson from different people. And they're doing all the same stuff, saying a lot of the same stuff, but one of them just vibes with you. So that's the one you benefit from. And what I noticed and what I pointed out to like newer trainers in the past who may listen to this is some of my personal favorite content like 5 or 6 years ago, production wise sucked. And we would laugh about it. Was Sean, it was the good dog. His persona and everything is so good. But like the editing and all that was not that great. But it didn't matter. They just put it out anyway. And the funny thing is the good Drew asked. And he attributes it to that. He was like, yeah, we got our start here. And then we got into blogging. And then we got into the books. And then we got into the seminars and T3 and all that stuff. But
you're talking about Sean and Jeff. Yeah, you know what? I have some stuff to say about them too, which a lot of times they don't get credited enough for. But I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
No, you're good, man. No, I was just making the point that like Sean's early videos for the good dog, obviously the content was there. And obviously Sean has a way about him on camera. But the editing, the video quality, the audio quality, like none of that was like good. And it doesn't matter. And I say that because obviously, like we talked about in the very beginning, I think we weren't even live yet. It's important to make good quality stuff. We were talking about the whole audio and video setup and everything else. Do it if you can. But if you really can't, just put out something. Otherwise, you're going to end up being the best dog trainer that no one's ever heard of.
Well, you're waiting. Oh, what's that saying? It's like something. Oh, I'm going to totally butcher this. Like perfect or something is better than perfect if perfect ain't done. Or
right.
I forget how to word it, but yeah, that's so true. But
anything is better than perfect if perfect isn't done.
Yeah, there it is. Thank you. Sean has a gift with words.
Yes, agreed.
He really, really does. And I know like recently, sometimes those two guys get a lot of heat, but at the end of the day, they're one of the few people that as they were learning and they were still helping, they broke ground.
They broke ground.
Absolutely.
I think that's what really bothers a lot of people. It's like the nerve of them. They haven't been in the game for this long, or they're still making mistakes. And listen, this is the reality. Everyone is going to do it and everyone's going to strive to get better. And is everyone perfect? No. Right. But if you were genuinely in the business to help, there's no way in hell, like could some of their techniques or my techniques or anybody's techniques be better than what it is? Absolutely.
Right.
But if it's still helping people, like there's no way that they're hurting more people than they're helping.
Correct. Right.
You see what I mean? So like
I absolutely.
That's still okay in my book. One thing that they don't get enough credit for, and I was actually talking with Tyler about this, because Tyler and I, well, COVID kind of put a damper in this, but Tyler and I teach seminars. In fact, I'm fortunate enough to be the only person that he teaches seminars with anymore.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
So like he made a decision, I'm not doing it anymore. Like our understanding.
That's Blake.
That's the only thing we're gonna do it. So like that's huge. He really took me under his wing and I've learned a lot and I owe him a lot. He's a really good friend of mine.
Right.
But what Sean and Jeff don't get enough credit for is actually speaking openly about the tools of remote collars before it was popular. Is there improvements? Are there things that like as I learned, I also went to T3. And what I will say is from a business perspective and like, self-worth and like being, feeling good enough and having the right mindset to put yourself out there and do that stuff. It was one of the best courses I've taken. I'm sure their training is different now than what it was then. Are there things that I go, oh, I've also learned that this was good. I would change this. I would do that. Yeah, but same thing with myself and anybody else. Same thing with Cesar Millan. Like I think that guy is gifted. I think he's instinctually like on another level. And I know him personally. I've met him. I've seen him do incredible stuff in front of my eyes. I think for the longest time, especially with TV, his flaw was that he needed to be the magic man. So he would jump into things and do it. And he could do it because he knew what he was doing, but it didn't necessarily translate into the everyday owner to try to replicate or be him. And that's where the problem came. But that was also what we did for television. You know what I mean? Is he better now than what he was before?
That inspired, you know, and that's the one thing we all talk about is that, you know, Cesar Millan inspired pretty much this generation of dog trainer. Like I was 15, 16, 17 years old watching every single episode.
You hate him or love him, but that dude, man.
I mean, and I would say, you know, I think from a dog trainer standpoint, like I'm not sure how much hate he gets because at some point, as Tyler said, we all owe our careers.
We all owe our careers to Cesar Millan.
You know, in a way where the dog training industry was going from, you know, it's all the dog's fault to no, it's your fault.
And it's actually the owner's fault. Right. I was going to point that out.
Things. It becomes so standard. You're like, wow, this guy really did pay this way. This guy really did that way.
Yes.
And then they get so big.
Yeah.
And they get big enough to the point where people hate and people critique and then you get the cancel culture and you get all this and it's tough.
Well, you know, sorry, go ahead.
No worries, man. Sorry, you go ahead because I was going to shift back to Sean and Jeff for a second.
Yeah, well, so I was just gonna say like, so yeah, like obviously yes, he gets caught up in having to be the magic man and having to do all these things, and you know, like there's shows that just came out recently. We won't say names, but you know, it's like you see sometimes that same formula, like trying to be the magic man, and it's not. And me personally, I don't feel that it's helping the industry.
It's hard though, because TV and what they try to produce does it.
Yeah.
Like,
yes.
Yeah. And I show that came out.
Yeah.
Recently, and I have to double check. I have to reach out to my guy. I had flown out to California with my wife a couple of years ago. I think it was like 2019 or whatever. It might have been 2019. We were filming a pilot. It was going to go to Animal Planet. It was going to go to Nat Geo. And then we were talking about Netflix. And then like something else had gotten greenlit or they were talking about it. And it was actually so like that didn't go. But the problem is when you know you're helping and you're doing something, it's how do you send this message and how do you do it where you can still be entertaining, where some dog training is boring, but then you can also sell, and then the producers and the people that are doing it are going, no, but it needs to look like this.
Who have nothing, who have no clue.
Nothing.
And that's the interesting thing. It's almost as if, you know, like it's funny. It's like where the mentality of dog owners is maybe about 5 years, 10 years behind that of dog trainers. I would say, and I don't know the exact number, but it's like, you know, you tend to see that. I was reading a book called Spiral Dynamics. You know anything about spiral dynamics? And it was talking about the evolution of consciousness and how your life circumstances affects the way that you think about things, right? So it talked about, you know, like once upon a time we were all animals and animalistic, and we were driven just like dogs by our instinct. Then it talked about tribalism, where, you know, we tried to find meaning in the sun and the moon and the earth, and we try to understand like how things are correlated. And then it talked about like the Viking mentality, which is the dominance will survive, and how we will pillage and take what we need because the strongest survives. And then there's a mentality that is the complete pendulum swing, which is like, why don't we all just get along, and why don't we all just, you know, why don't we follow the superior being, whatever the superior being is? And then the pendulum swings. Well, what about innovation? And what about the Renaissance? And what about the Enlightenment? And it just talks about the evolution of human thought and the psychology behind it. And it's really awesome because, you know, it helps me look at the dog training world in a very different way. How there are some dog trainers that, and mind you, and the system doesn't say that one mentality is better than the other. It's just brought to you by life experiences, right? How, you know, there are tribes in Africa today that still believe in the sun god and the moon god and the earth and our brother and sister wolf and all that stuff. And then there are people who are like, you know, it's all about science and it's all detached and there's no oneness and all that stuff, right? But it's just interesting because our clients who we're trying to educate and help are behind our industry, in a way, at least in my opinion. You know,
no, I agree 100%.
Yeah, like, so like what you guys are talking about at the IACP, what we're talking about as dog trainers, like this is the Dog Trainers podcast, not the Dog Owners podcast. Maybe we should start a different one and talk about those issues. But it's interesting. And so, like, how do we get? Maybe this is just a thought, not necessarily a question, but like, how do we get those? How do we get them to align?
Yeah, or speed them up. Well, I think that part of the answer
content
content, but goes to what type of content. Like Sean and Jeff, you know, hate them, I love them, perfect, imperfect, whatever. They show it all. And I feel like Sean O'Shea and Jeff Gelman and the whole T3 setup has gotten more people into dog training, going through T3 and starting out a new career as dog trainers than other programs who are like people who are already dog trainers who just want to get better. Like they've made it like they've cast a really wide net. Everybody I meet here in Arizona, you know, when we throw adoption events and stuff like that, you know, everybody I meet so far who is now a dog trainer went to T3 or knows about T3 and really wants to go to T3 and stuff like that, you know. So I agree with you that they deserve that credit. And I agree with you that the credit that they deserve is just putting it out there and being willing to learn. And I also wanted to add, you know, on their behalf, like, that's another reason why for newer trainers who are considering making content, whatever that looks like for us, the podcast, you know, at one point it was just episode 1, and episode 1 sucks, by the way, if anybody listens to it, but you got to start somewhere. And you know what? I'm glad that it is what it is. It's short. It's probably boring. The audio probably sucks, but it's fun because you are a part of the journey. Like Joe Rogan's original episodes were boring and they weren't all 2 hours long, and he didn't have amazing guests, and he was just that guy from Fear Factor. But you feel a part of the process because you're like, man, I can see the growth.
Yeah.
You know, and it makes you, it invigorates you because you're like, you're there, you're one of us, you know? And I think the other thing that they deserve a lot of credit for is, if I'm not mistaken, maybe a few years ago or so, they went and spoke with like whatever the term, like Parliament in like Wales or something, about lifting the ban on like remote call. Like they were doing some real serious stuff, you know? Yeah. So maybe they're training.
Tyler did some work on that too. Yeah.
Okay.
So
awesome.
Tyler,
you know?
Well, yeah, Tyler did a lot of that, ISCP and being president and all of that. I think the other thing is that's something they've done, and that they get shit on a lot because it's different fields, but part of it is all evolution. Right. Evolution and growth, and like every piece and every part helped
the next one
evolution to get us to a place where even with this podcast, you guys are going to be what you think are big name trainers now are not going to be, and then it's going to be, we're going to be primitive if we aren't already, and with people that are names, or let's say Sean and Jeff that, you know, have people that are newer who are responsible for all these trainers, that comes with additional responsibility of like, shit, we have to make improvements and we have to change things that we've done that we didn't know then that we know now. And you can only hope that anybody would aspire to do that and make their changes, whether it's them, whether it's me, whether it's this, like, it doesn't matter. You're always understanding that the more you're in front of an audience, the more you are responsible for things. So that's, it just comes with the territory, and I think it's important to mention.
I also kind of wanted to answer Brent's question about like, how do we help speed the learning curve?
It's got to be content, right? But yeah, I want to hear what you have to say.
Right. Well, I was going to say content, but I was going to say this. Last time, Brent, I'm sorry. The thing about the thing about jiu-jitsu. Why do jiu-jitsu players get so damn good? Because they test their mettle against other guys. That's what competitions are for. That's what rolling is for. That's what going to different schools is for. Other than jiu-jitsu, I've been doing jiu-jitsu like a while, but I'm much more versed in stand-up. I've been boxing for a long time. I grew up in it. I competed in it when I was younger. And we used to travel gyms getting ready for fights. You know, from Fresno, California down to Baja. If the fighter fits the criteria for what we're looking for, a great counterpuncher, a lefty, or whatever, you know, all the trainers, all the gym owners, they were friends and they all knew each other and they were willing to mix it up. Dog training is so individual. There needs to be some sort of way for us to like mix things up. Content is one, like just like this is one of them, like having conversations, but this is just a conversation. Brent came up with an awesome idea that, you know, I'll let him explain, but essentially it's we need to just get together more and like mix it up more, do some training together.
And I think that's the biggest thing, because the problem with as we learn more and we attend different seminars or listen to different podcasts, is you learn, oh man, there's more to this. And you start becoming aware of certain names. Like, like there's these guys like over in Australia, like Pat Stewart and like Glenn Cook. And then there's this guy like Ivan that people are talking about. There's this guy, Mike Ellis, and there's like all these things, and you start learning about it. The goal is to learn. And Jay Jack, I got to shout out to Jay Jack.
Yep.
That guy's, I'm actually going to be spending some time with him later on this year. I'm going over to him.
Jay Jack, Joel.
Train dogs and roll jiu-jitsu. Then Nelson Hodges, I'm spending more time with him. COVID put a damper in all of those. And a lot of things. But as you learn from this, for me, the thing that I would advise people to stay away from is the negative, toxic energy that comes with learning more or knowing a little bit more or knowing something different than what someone else does, because that becomes almost cult-like. Yeah. And that gets scary.
Yeah, stop looking for the messiah of training.
Yeah, you gotta be careful. Because some people will now they become a part of, we just attended this or we do this, and now we know this. So as long as you're learning from it all, but you're keeping the mindset and you're staying like away from that, and your
be a scholar. Be a scholar.
Continue to help. Continue to educate and continue to share without trying to take credit or trying to be the one that's inventing the wheel and stuff, which some people in a weird way are.
Right.
You're gonna be fine, but you just got to be careful, because as you learn, that environment is there and it's toxic and it's scary for a lot of new people. So continue to learn, continue to try to get better, but then continue to just try to help and still be a nerd about this. Like don't get caught up in like the ego. That the ego in dog training is just is out of this world.
Isn't it crazy? Don't you notice that it's a little different these days? The younger dog trainers don't seem to be the same.
It's bad. I try to stay away from all that, but at the same time, I want to learn from it all. But I want to stay away from all that. It's tough.
Am I wrong, or do you feel like the tides are shifting a little bit?
For what, ego?
For ego in dog trainers, younger dog trainers that you see like online.
With dog trainers, I think it's more friendly because they're newer and they're eager to learn. And also we have social media. So you're either posting on social media and you're sharing. Because here's the thing. If I'm doing something unique, whether it's unique or not, I probably didn't invent it, but I might be wording it differently, explaining it differently.
Exactly.
Right? Like that's more along the lines of where we're going to be with most situations. But if I'm putting it on social media, it's not about me getting credit or you needing to tag me or doing anything. Like that's there. You want to mention it, and if you're doing it, you're probably going to do it different than I am. So I might not want the credit, or it's just I think younger trainers are eager for more knowledge, and because people are posting more, it's more accessible than it ever has been before. You know what I mean? And it's also accelerating the learning process, which is the same thing for, here you go, Brent, jiu-jitsu.
Oh, God damn it again.
It really is. There's some people now who are doing things because they have access to this content that we didn't have before. And the same thing could be said for dog training. But at the same token, sometimes you're learning so much that you're not able to get your hands dirty.
Right.
To learn, or you spend time attending seminar, and not applying something.
Yeah, seminar-itis. Yeah.
That's what.
Seminar-itis. And from each seminar, you get so caught up in one way that you were talking about before, you forget what is you. So you try to do everything the same, and then you mess up, and then you extract a little bit from it. Then you try to do everything exactly this way, and you're good with it, but it takes you away from like, oh, how do I articulate this to them, or how do I address these issues? So it's just oh man, I could talk about this stuff forever.
Well, this is so I had an idea, and again, it's just an idea because I have a nonprofit, and ultimately what our nonprofit does is, as a lot of dog trainers do, I get a collective of dog trainers. I'm one of those people in LA, like I'm looking at LA dog trainers and I'm like, oh, she's good. Oh, he's good. So I just hit them up and I just say, how you guys doing? I'm a dog trainer. I host a dog training podcast. You want to be on that podcast? Listen to the podcast. I'd love to meet with you and have coffee. And like, I'm a networker, right? And one of the big things was we were talking to Sarah Brewski, who's on Consider the Dog. She's dope. And we were saying, shits and IP, and protection sports have clubs. Agility has clubs. Pet dog training don't have clubs.
Doesn't have clubs.
We don't have clubs, right? And I mean, you have like IACP, right? Like you have that, but where can we sharpen steel against steel? Like, how can we do this? How can we get dog trainers to come together, different skill levels, How can we get each other to work dogs with one another? How can we, in a very, it has to be a very open environment where,
roll
and roll. How can we practice? Right. And so in my nonprofit, obviously we teach, we work with rescues, we work with shelters, we work with fosters, we work with volunteers, we teach them handling. I'm not the person, I didn't invent this. A lot of people do this, but part of one of the programs that I want to work with is I want to see how we can get dog trainers to collaborate in a city, in any particular city. How can we get, especially we have a lot of listeners on this podcast. How can we all come together, meet at a shelter, give us 10 dogs that have been returned, just an idea. And how can we collaborate? And how can we talk? How can we, maybe if it's not 10 dogs with behavior problems, maybe it's just something simple like, I don't know what it is, but
yeah, like bring 10 dogs out and
how
run
can
like
we
a
get
group
dogs
class
in the same room with a bunch of different trainers, maybe, and work? How can we do that? Right? Any thoughts, Blake?
No, but it's really something that I'm gonna think about, because it is really interesting. It's hard though, because you border on the line of experimenting at the expense of the dog, and technically you're always doing that, no matter what. But when you're, and that's what it's always been from the beginning, even when it was more from a competitive standpoint of okay, well, you get this dog
because you're practicing on your dog,
and you get this dog from a shelter and you do positive reinforcement only, then I'm gonna do this, we're gonna show you. But it's like you can't just have this dog as this test dummy, even though it is always going to be that. So
of course,
that's where things get a little bit murky.
Yeah.
It's well, how do we do that? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, there's something there, and there's some way. How can we benefit rescue animals? They're like for example, we will once a month, my company will take a rescue animal that's been returned, and we train the shit out of that dog, and we help find it a home for a rescue organization, right? And so that's something that my company does, and my staff volunteers their time. I pay them for it, of course, but at the end of the day, it's their volunteer work and their experience with rescue. With how can we, or is that something we do at kennels, right? Like we might go to someone's kennel, like, I don't know. Let's say I had 10 dogs here that are training, and we invite trainers to come. We all work together. Right?
Maybe it's something logistically that would have to be done if it's 10 people with 10 different dogs, and it's not necessarily like a group class type thing, all at once. Maybe it's like, let me show you how I'm going to teach this dog this command, and then I'm going to bring the other dog out. Oh, okay, well, let me show you how I'm going to teach this dog this. And everybody,
because I never want it to be like, oh, I'm here and you're here. I want it to be
of course.
Let's bring what we got to the table. And let's but
that's exactly the point of rolling, is you want to roll with guys that are better than you.
True.
And it's not about ego. It's not about any of that stuff. It's not about winning or losing, because there's no winning or losing in who's training their dogs. It's just the thing about rolling with people who know more than you is, again, you pick up the little bits of information that you're capable of picking up at the time. And because now you're that much better, now you can pick up a little more, and you baby step it, so whoever's better, whoever's worse.
That's
true. And that's, I think, the essence of it. And if even having hands-on dogs, like one person per dog, makes, I think, the most logistical sense, at least in my head right now. Like if trainers could donate or volunteer, let's say, I don't know, 6 days of their time, if they live in that city, everybody comes in for 6 days straight, and we're going to put these dogs through a very, very basic, we're going to teach them this, in that amount of time.
Well, you know what I think it needs to be, because you can't take the same dog and go, okay, let me see what you do with it.
It's almost an assign, assign people dogs, maybe.
That's what I'm saying, is everybody has their own dog.
You have your own dog, but what it really needs to be is perhaps not a city thing, and more of a bigger project from a film crew that can go around and say, hey, I took this dog. And if you really want to make it work, it has to be the dog that is in order for a rescue to just give up a dog, it has to be the dog that probably isn't really adoptable, or it has to be the dog that has been returned, that no one's really going to take this dog. So let me see what you would do with this dog. I can't be there for a month or a week. Because we have a life. So the film crew films what you did with this dog. We see where you got, we see what was unique, what was different, what was the same. I take a dog, I do this. we see this person take a dog and we go, holy shit, that's really different. Or that wouldn't work here, but that's unique.
So it's showing the process. So
It's
that
showing-
way, so that
right.
way we don't need the people to be in the same room. We need people to see the process.
You need
That's
to see the
yeah.
process. And then you also need to, at some point, like how many things are going to be redundant or how many things are going to be the exact same that you go, okay, we don't need to show this, but what are you doing that's slightly different, or what are you doing that's slightly different? And how can we take this and potentially pay these people who are doing this so that the rest of the world can learn from it?
Right. And that's the point, because the thing about
that's the conditioning, right?
Right. Well, that's the conditioning, but the thing about redundancy is sometimes I'll see like a hip toss and they do one little thing different and I'm like, oh shit, I'm gonna try that. And it's better than I was doing, and so like I agree. I think that makes the most logical sense, like having a film crew follow people, because then you can do like a 3-week.
Right.
And push a dog through like,
you can have somebody like, hey, we're gonna keep this dog. Everybody's gonna get the dog for 2 months.
Right.
Yeah.
And it does show, like I've noticed a lot of the different processes out there for getting a dog through something. Like Ivan Balbalov was doing toy work to get a dog to stop being so reactive on lead. Like it's interesting, the different ideas that people have out there, and I think that's definitely most likely
amazing. That is amazing. You just cleared everything up. And that all the questions I had in my head. Thank you for that.
And all the while, it gives people, again, the opportunity to sharpen themselves and roll around a little bit. You see what other people are up to, and you take what's, like you said earlier, it's kind of having that filter. You take what's valuable, and don't worry about what's not. And over time, slowly, it builds on itself.
That's the Bruce Lee quote right there. Are you familiar with that quote?
No, what is it?
I don't know. Probably.
It is extract what is useful. Discard what is useless. Create what is uniquely your own.
100%. Thanks, Bruce. Thanks, Bruce.
That's what it is. The only thing that gets challenging is that film crew has to decide what to show or what to film.
The edits.
Yeah, the edits. That's the hardest part. That's the hardest part right there.
Well, I think it's I think and I think I definitely think the trainer has to have a say on the cut for sure,
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think that's right there is a brainchild worth nurturing.
You want to be on this brainchild, Blake?
I'm down. Yeah, I'm down. Yeah, I like it. I think it's something that is needed, and it's with the people that want to actually help. There's some people who are doing really unique things, but they're not genuinely in the business of helping others. They're in the business of like profiting for it or trying to just get the sole credit for it.
Right.
At the end of the day, if I'm doing something unique and you can take it and be helping other people, and then you're filming a video on it, like for me personally, who gives a shit? More power to you.
Right.
Like you know what I mean? How many people are doing a berimbolo, or how many people are doing this, or how many people are working on that? Like who knows who originally invented that thing that way?
Who invented the wheel? Nobody knows.
It's not about that person getting the credit. And like, I think we need to get a little bit away from that with certain people in big names. It's like
that Messiah complex.
Well, it's about moving forward. That's what I loved about 10th Planet, is they don't really care about, like, they created all kinds of different. When the first time I saw the electric chair, I was like, oh shit. But it's just but they don't, but they don't really care. It's just like, look, man, we're just trying to evolve jiu-jitsu.
Yep.
That's all. I think it would be something that would be nice to just a rising tide rises all ships type thing. So if somebody learns whatever the small thing is, then you're just that much better, even if it's a tiny amount. And if you're that much better, then when you're putting out your content, it's that much better. And so on and so on, because then there's that other quote. The one that I like is the Tupac Shakur quote, that's like, I may not change the world, but I guarantee you I'll spark the mind of the person that does type thing. It's incremental progress. Like you said, with the Barimbolos and the Kimuras and all that. So I remember when triangle chokes were like amazing. Like UFC 2.
Now they're standard practice,
Yeah, they're basic, it's like ground game.
I pay attention, motherfuckers. See?
But I mean, I agree with you though. It's like, it's a matter of progressing it forward, which is really just a matter of like, show what you do, because you never know, but
share it. Don't
right.
The hard part, though, people don't want to do that.
I know, which is why it's kind of falling on like those of us who aren't afraid to do it, to provide the opportunity to do it.
And that's the big thing. The people that I've reached out to on Instagram has been because they show it. And I'm like, you're dope and you have no idea how good you are. Like people who are just doing it out of passion, people who are just, there's this girl I follow on Instagram, Toki Learns Dogs, Toki.learns. She's in Brooklyn. She's in New York, and she's sick. Shout out to Toki. Young girl, 150 followers on Instagram. She has no clue how good she is at all. And it's amazing. It's amazing. Anyway, just shout out to her.
Oh, you guys should check out too. You guys familiar with Forrest Mickey?
Oh, love Forrest Mickey.
Yeah, Forrest.
We don't know him personally. We know he's friends with Tommy. We know he's friends with Tyler. We know he's friends with Michael, all that stuff. He's probably, we should hit him up. You can put him on the podcast because I love watching his healing work. Like he is a specialist. Like that boy is a specialist for sure. I love that. I love it. Well, I wanted to ask you a couple questions because we were taking a lot of your time, my friend. We're about two and some change in right now. I want to ask you this question that we ask a lot of our special guests. We talk about dog training as art, and this is a common theme that we've seen across the board, from Tyler to Michael to Tommy to everybody that we have on. And if you were an artist and you had a toolbox, your brushes, your colors, your paints, your pencils, your inks, whatever it was, what is the tool in your artist toolbox that you feel allows you to be the most effective dog trainer you can be?
Oof. There's so many different directions that you can go with that.
Yeah, I'll give you some of the common answers, right? Or like what we've heard from before is.
I don't even want to hear it because.
Okay, tell me. Yeah.
So are we talking an actual tool, like a
no. An actual, it could be a skill, could be a mindset, could be a thought. What is it about, like, if you looked at yourself as an artist in dog training, what is an invaluable tool that in your mind you're like, this is the most important or one of the most important? So there could be multiples. I don't care.
Okay. For me personally, and what I am in the business of is getting things to make sense for other people. So my ability to articulate and break things down in a way that people can resonate with, I always want to look to continue to improve that, because that's more important than anything else, in my opinion. People have to understand it. They have to get it. It has to be clear, and it has to kind of excite them. And that might mean, for the person that is also not the dog enthusiast, for the person that is not the dog nerd, that is not, they just want help with their dog, we have to be able to break things down for them. Mm-hmm. So the ability to articulate things for people that's it right there.
You see how I noticed that, and I put that in our Instagram post. This guy knows how to make shit make sense, and that's an art in and of itself, right? And I
strive to get better with that and make it entertaining. And almost, even when I'm breaking things down, tell a little bit of a story. Mm-hmm. I did actually have an Instagram post on this a while back, where I started looking at some of the very best comedians. Mm-hmm. and how they separate themselves from other comedians who tell really funny jokes, mm-hmm. but they don't tell it in the form of a story where what they said in the beginning comes back full circle in the end. And I want to be able to link everything that we're doing and have it come back. So that's what I always try to do. And when I tell a story, or I explain, or I break things down, even if I am telling the same story over and over again, because you had mentioned, Brent, how you sometimes want to change it up and you want to do it. My goal is to do what some of the greats have done, like Dave Chappelle or like Kevin Hart or whatever. Like, it's particularly Chappelle. He'll go into the hole of a wall, and just tell these jokes, get a response. No, tell these jokes, say it. And what he's doing, it's the same material, but it's presented slightly different. And then it gets a different response, and it gets different feedback, and it gets lasting results. So my goal is
he's testing,
and tell the story and learn and just switch it up through that, because the material is the same for what we're covering the majority of the time. Obviously, things are going to change. We're going to improve. It's going to get better. But how can I tell it better? And how can I change how I tell it for this particular individual?
Right. And how they receive things, and how they their lens on the whole situation.
Yeah, exactly. The paradigm that they see through. How can I get to see through the paradigm of the dog, and then my visual, and how can I take what they do and what they do for a living and sort of potentially use that and things like that.
100%. From my perspective, I've always told people that in my opinion, what separates like the really great dog trainers from like everybody else is their ability to understand that. They know the audience. They can cater to their audience. It's not just information that's spewed over and over and over. They play with it and have fun with it, like Dave Chappelle. I know what you mean when you say that. You know,
Dave Chappelle's a black belt. Let's just say he's a black belt.
I was trying to avoid it to be nice to you. I'll be honest. It was on the tip of my tongue.
2 degrees, third degree. How many
He's like
stripes?
fifth.
Five stripes,
But
6 stripes.
I swear, Brent, I was going to say it and I didn't to be polite to you. But if you're going to bring it up, then.
It's all good. No, that is such a beautiful answer. And, I say this, game respects game, right? Like to see someone who is passionate about making things make sense, to see someone, I mean, these are the qualities we see in a Tyler Muto, in a Michael Ellis. And these are why people love them, right? Like love these people because you're able to not only make it make sense here, you're able to make it make sense here. And I think that's when you're talking about the storytelling. This is something I strive to do every single day is how do I make it make sense here, and here in your hands, like practically, how do you make it make sense? And I think it's that Trinity, right? Here, and here, right? Your mind, how do you make it make sense? How do you make it feel right? And how do you teach the person to actually apply it in real life? That is that holy Trinity of dog training. And, every time that you master maybe just the dog training process, well, the next thing is the human training process, right? And shout out to Russ at Calm Canine. He made this point. He goes, dog training is the only industry where we refer to other people as humans. He goes, no other profession refers to people as humans. So, but like, how do you make it make sense to the people? And then how do we put this universe together? So it's really dope. That was a dope answer, Blake. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. And you summed it up even better. Like the ability to storytell is actually more valuable than people realize for what it is that we do,
Yeah. I love that. Well, I think we are coming to the end of our podcast episode. I really appreciate you coming onto this podcast, Blake. You are welcome back anytime. We definitely want to have you. We do have an idea of having a round table, like Hollywood Reporter does this round table of things. We would love to have a round table of some of our special guests in the future. So, I would love to invite you if you're willing.
No, absolutely. I love what you guys are doing and the direction that this is heading in. And for the record, I mentioned it before we started this. I decided to do my hair today because of that incident. That I was this boy, we're coming to an end.
Yes,
I'm back to the hat. We're good.
He's like, my head is freezing in this.
Hey, listen, I'm in Florida right now. I'm in sunny Florida. The weather is nice here, man.
Oh man, that's amazing. I've never been to Florida. I've been to Georgia. Never been to Florida. I gotta go.
We're doing some good stuff here, and
Are you doing a facility out there or no?
No facility.
Just your home facility.
The home thing, the unique thing, and it allows me to just spend more time with my family, and also do something a little bit different with the dogs, and kind of build a relationship in a different way, and kind of bond with them in a way that the majority of the dogs that are coming here, all dogs need it, but a lot of the dogs need something that is slightly different, and it's a nice way for me to get back to what I enjoy doing. Is I enjoy working with the dog. Where I've gotten to with the facility, I love what I'm doing in New York City. We're doing a fantastic job. I've spent so much time trying to develop a team and get them better and build a facility.
Sorry. Do you have what kind of time do you have right now? I want to be respectful.
I got some time, but my family's already sleeping.
So okay. So this is I ended this prematurely. Sorry, audience, because one of the big things I wanted to talk to you about was obviously as we progress, right? There are dog trainers who just want to be solo artists, right? There are dog trainers who like to teach, and then there are dog trainers who want to build a business. Right. And this was one of the big questions. I can't believe it's right here on the outline.
It's right there. Yeah.
It's right here on the outline. Yeah. I wanted to talk to you about building a business. Like you went from your apartment, you went to a facility. maybe a team of 1 or 2 people, and now you have a team of 12, if not more, right? And now you're going to 2 facilities. Talk to us about that journey. Talk to us about that process. That is amazing, because I mean, I worked for a big 2 facility. You know, my history is I worked for a business in LA that had 2 facilities. I helped build the second facility, and I worked there for 10 years. And we were going to franchise and everything. And then the owner decided to sell the company. So I left. I literally started from the bottom to build up my business again. And I want to know, talk to me about this journey, right? I have 5 employees right now. You got 12 employees. You got 2 facilities coming up. You got technically 3 facilities if you count the home.
Is it actually 12? Did I give you that number? Because I'm thinking in my head.
I think on Instagram, on a YouTube video that I was watching, you were saying like, welcome to the dream team or something like that. And I think you said 12. That was, yeah. So it might be different now. I don't know, but it's somewhere around that number. Like we might be at the 15 mark, but it's somewhere there. I was like, damn, this guy knows it. I'm trying to like count it. Like as you're doing stalking you.
Yeah. It's exciting, it's exhilarating, it's scary, and it's stressful all at the same time.
All the feelings.
The thing that is probably the most scary is at the time that I was doing it in general, especially in New York City, there's no real blueprint to follow. I spent some time, with Tyler, seeing what he was doing, how he was doing it, understanding the differences between
Buffalo,
New York, and
right,
New York
I was going to say,
and also the similarities, and then saying, okay, this could work, this can't work, this is what we have to do differently. But if you're opening up a restaurant, you can go down the block and go, okay, how did you guys do it? Oh, you're Italian cuisine, this is Chinese cuisine, or this is whatever. You can't really do that with this. So it was kind of a one-of-a-kind thing. Okay, how do we make it work? How do we do it? How do we wing it? How do we make adjustments? How do we learn from our mistakes? And that's still what we're doing till this day. The thing that I try to do, and it's the hardest thing, you go from knowing how to do something yourself and not really having an actual system in the beginning, but knowing that when you're doing stuff with the dogs, it's working, to then having people that work for you who you don't want them just doing whatever, and you don't want them winging. So you have to put systems in place, even though I hate the idea of paint by number dog training.
Yep.
I hate the idea
it's more laying out principles.
There has to be principles, and there has to be, okay, we have to get you to this standard of you guys know how to do this. So things have been almost robotic in the beginning, but I think what I'm really, really excited about is we've gotten the team for the most part to a place where they're all at that level, and now we can be creative and continue to help one another, and I can them, and we can brainstorm together, and this is where things get creative, because we have the fundamental principles to an extent down. Obviously there's things that we can learn from, and there's still stuff that I want to dabble with. The last 2 years I've wanted to spend time continuing to learn from others, but then when I'm building a facility, I have to spend time devoting it for them, getting them to where I am, which is stalled my learning.
Your growth. Yep.
So then I had an idea of, I'm going to pay, and I still do this, for my team to attend seminars and bring back knowledge so we can continue to
cultivate.
And that's worked to an extent, but it's not quite the same, because then you also have turnover and some leave and stuff. And it's like, man, like I paid for you to do this and that. So it's like, this year particularly, I'm going to spend like a week out with J-Jack, and I'm going to learn what he's doing with some of the stuff, and just have fun. Not about ego. We're going to train dogs. We're going to learn. I'm going to learn. We're going to train jujitsu. I'm also going to go back out to Nelson Hodges, who's a very, very interesting gentleman and knows some stuff, and just continue to kind of try to bring stuff back to the team, learn stuff myself, and then go, hey, this is what I took from this. And I have a pretty, I'm getting better at articulating things, and that's something that I try to do. So let me learn this and say, hey, this is what I got out of it, and this is what I think makes sense for the environment that we're in. So I want to get back to that, so that I can just get us, myself included, better, which I think has kind of been put on the back burner over the last, not that I haven't been learning, but over really the last 5 years, or almost 6 years that the facility has been open. It's like, okay, I have to get back to doing this, because
you got to get back to
with dog training, you don't want it to leave you behind.
There's so much more, so much unique. I have to get back to to doing better than what I'm doing currently, even though
Yeah.
what I'm doing is pretty damn good.
Yep.
It's got to be better. It has to be better. So
100%. Like me and Mariano, when we finished with Larry, we were saying, when are you going to be in Cali? And he goes, I'm going to be in there. I'm going to be there with Joel, J-Jack in December. And we're like, yo, give us the ticket info. Cause we're going to be there because, you know, we're at the same place. It's like, you know, building a business is hard. Building a business, you know, where you're the operator, where you are constantly operating and seeing clients and having to work and having to troubleshoot and having to do all that stuff. And, you know, I'm finally at a place where I can be creative with my team. Once they know their principles, you know, they're able to, I know for a fact they can train a dog. It gets to a point where I know I can give them a 6-month-old puppy, and in 4 weeks, that dog is going to be, so crisp, so nice. Right. But at the end of the day, you know, what is our philosophies? What is the what is the culture? What is,
well, that's that tough, like, it's not a double standard. It's more just like that catch-22 of, you want the creativity, you want the innovation, but at the same time, you need to have protocols in place so that like these crazy outlier situations don't occur. And if they do, you know what happened and how it happened and so on and so on.
Yeah. One thing that's interesting for me is like, so my company's name is CANIS, CANIS, right? That's the name of my company. And I always tell my team, I'm like, I am Brent LaBrada. I'm my own person. I'm a dog trainer. I'm the founder of this company, but you guys are this company. Everything that you guys bring to this table, your jokes, your sense of humor, your dog training, your love for the animals, everything, that is you guys. We are Canis. I'm Brent LaBrada. How do you navigate the identity of your company, Blake?
Well, you know who's had a recent significant influence on that is actually Brene Brown.
Love
it. And just, I'm making an effort now to
power of vulnerability.
Yeah, well, there's that, and then there's just
dare to lead.
Leading. Yeah, man, that's actually I'm on that audiobook right now.
Yeah,
getting the team to influence and improve and get more confident, not on their own, but
Right.
get things to a better place. So it's not just the direction is just coming from me and a lot of stories that are in, I'm not sure if it was the first Brene one or what was the other one that I just
Daring Greatly.
No, it was the Culture Code with
yes. Guess what I got right here? Talent.
Yeah.
Code.
Oh, the talent. Yeah, it was a talent code or was it Culture Code? But yeah, both of them. With what was it? Dan Coyle? Is that
Dan Coyle? Yep. Dan
yeah.
Coyle.
So that's someone I didn't mention before. There's a portion when they start talking about like Pixar and Disney and all this stuff that
Culture
like,
Code is right over there.
I don't know if you can I actually just got cold chills thinking about like they never changed their team, but they got oh man, I'm totally gonna butcher this, but they all got better through the mistakes that they made together as a team. So I'm really trying to create more of a team atmosphere and culture where it's okay to make mistakes and it's okay to do this and that's something that I'm just trying to improve on. The goal is always to get the team better as I'm trying to get better myself. It's how do I get this machine to operate better than a machine?
Have you guys looked into Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink?
I have. I think I actually have it on Audible. It's one of the tokens. I just haven't listened to it yet.
Okay. Yeah, that one, I think, as you were talking about the importance of the team, it sounded to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, like
wrong.
you're
right.
I know. Like you want them to feel
leash pop correction.
Right. Yeah. You want them to feel like this isn't just my house and you live here. You are part of the process. I want you to take ownership of what which brought me to Jocko.
Yeah. And I just want them thinking. I want them thinking that, listen, if I'm not here, ideally the place runs better when I'm not there.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Like you know what I mean?
Because you're not.
I remember my mentor. So I worked for the same guy for 10 years, and he taught me, business and dog training and how to work with rescue. He's a huge rescuer in LA, and dog trainer. But I remember he straight up just stopped coming into the office one day. He straight up just was like, I'm just not going to come into the office, so that I learned to just handle things on my own.
And I noticed that was also something that was happening with us with with our interns at Canines.
Oh yeah, so yeah, I mean, me and Mariano used to work together, so
you know, so like, and I noticed that they were. Have you ever had this situation, Blake, where you've got someone on your staff who they know what they're doing, except that they're nervous about pressing things forward? Meaning, if you were to tell them, "Hey, go work, you know, food sit, go work like leash pressure down, go work," like they can do it all, but they're not comfortable deciding when to go from this to this to this and progress the dog forward. They can do everything individually, except for put a whole program together. And so in order to get them comfortable making these decisions, you know, we would tell them all the time, like, look, you're good. You know what you're doing. If you think the dog's ready for X, go do it. But in order to give them that green light, it was a combination of that and a combination of like, all right, I'll tell you what, you know, if you feel like the dog's going to this, and this, go for it. I'm going to go take this dog to Starbucks. I'll see you in like 45 minutes and leave so that they don't feel like eyes are on them so they can just do their thing because their instinct is correct. They're just nervous about messing up in front of you.
Yeah, there's so much that goes into it. There's a little bit of like, you guys got to do this on your own without me and make mistakes. And then there's, I need to see this so that I can improve on the mistakes. And,
right.
My biggest thing, and I hope I don't forget this thought because it's like losing me, losing right now, is this is what I'm doing more of right now. I'm spending a lot more time asking them these simple questions. And if I'll come in, I go, okay, what are you doing with the dog right now? Why are you doing it? And how does it help with what the dog needs? Right. If you're in the training room or wherever and you're just going through the motions of the day, which is like, you're not doing anything bad or wrong, but it's like, do you know what week of the program the dog is in? Do you know what has been worked out with everybody else? If you're just doing
on task,
you know it's the way to do it, like you don't have the answer for like, why do you even know why the dog is here?
Right.
Because like we have to know these things. So that's what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get the team to be able to think more like that. And for the most part, we're there, but it has to be better. Okay, well, how do we brainstorm instead of you looking, okay, if Blake is not here, the head trainer, and the head trainer is, okay, what should I be doing right now? You guys have to feel comfortable knowing this, or at the very least, if you're doing something without permission, if the question gets asked, you have an answer that is not a defensive answer.
Right.
It's the answer because you actually thought it through.
I agree with you, and that's something that I actually do a lot with clients. I ask them questions, and if they start getting really insecure, like, you know, and I can hear in their voice like they're giving me an answer like they feel like it's going to be wrong, then I'll cut them off right there. I'm like, listen, you're not wrong. I want to know why you're doing this. I want to know your thought process. And then once I tell them they're not wrong, they're like, oh, well, I just figured, you know, if he was nervous, then instead of correcting him, I just like took a few steps away further from that person. And I'm like, good. Why? And I want to know why. I want to hear your thoughts because, you know, and then when they finally say it, all nervous, expecting me to be like, no, you know, then finally I'm
you're
like,
wrong.
Right. I'm like, the thing is, that instinct was very good. You're right where you should be. Like, I agree with what you just did. I wanted you to tell it to me because I wanted you to vocalize it, because a lot of times we do things without, if you never like,
why,
if you never, right. Well, if you never like think it out or write it out or however you particularly go about figuring things out, then you like did it, but you never really took in the message. Just kind of did it. And so I make it a point to be like, no, you're correct, but tell me why you did it. Like, I want to know these things. And, you know, and it's something that I work with now with, you know, my new trainer and everything else. You know, so it's just, have you had any sort of, like, have you, that kind of thing? You ask them questions, they'll get a little insecure about it. You let them know, like, listen, I'm not asking you to like shut you down. I want to know how you got here, because I agree, but I want you to hear your words.
There's a temperament thing to that too.
It's interesting because you have to know the person that is in front of you and how to like not push their buttons, because it's the same thing with a dog.
Yeah.
Like this might sound bad, but
no, we get it. We're dog trainers. We get it.
My staff is different. You know, you have some dogs that are a little bit softer that they can't be pushed the same way. You have dogs that you can just tell them straight away and like we can cut to the chase. Look,
they're working dogs. They're working dogs. They're like, sorry,
handle this type of pressure, because you realize that the direction I'm giving you is not because I hate you or I'm upset with you. It's just blunt. Yes. It's we got to move. We got shit to do.
Yeah.
Right.
People that I go, if I do that, I'm gonna rub this individual the wrong way. So I try to just adjust that way. And there's some members of the team that I need to help open them up more. Like, you know what I mean? And,
Yep.
and
Yep. Make them feel safe. You got to make them feel safe. Like, yo, you got problems. Don't keep it from me. Tell me.
I'm trying to be a better boss and continue in that regard. And that's one thing also is like in this business, I'm more than just a dog trainer. I'm also looking at this. I'm also learning more and more about business. We're also figuring out how to shift and make lemonade throughout COVID. We're also handling like, you know, virtuals and like this, and then the website, and social media, and then all of these things.
And podcast interviews, you know?
Yeah, and like podcast interviews and this, and then I got to get the dogs out right after. That are like all of these things. So there's so much that goes into it. There's just a lot. So my job never ends because I'm always striving to get better in different fields. The only thing that is unfortunate is that you can't necessarily all do it at once. So if I'm making more of an effort to be a better boss by way of learning more of the business side, maybe the training side takes a hit. If I'm learning more, spending more time with the dogs, maybe this side takes this, maybe this side of social media. I could blow this page up if I really wanted to, but I can't spend that much time doing that. So you have to distribute your time and make the time and make things priority that need to be priority. And there's no excuses for it. No, there's only X amount of time in the day, but prioritize what you think needs to be done at the time or at the moment. If that makes
100%.
sense.
Do you listen?
Go ahead.
What?
Do you listen to Andy Frisella? Do you know who Andy Frisella is?
I don't know. Who's that?
I think you'd like him a lot. If you like Jocko and you like Goggins and you like all these guys, Andy Frisella is the guy. He's the owner of First Form, you know, the supplement company. And he owns like a couple other supplement companies, and he's one of like the fitness industry guys. He has a podcast called the MFCEO. And I think that it's the kind of thing that's really fun to get people in the mood, because you seem like the kind of person who is like a self-starter, you know, which I'm sure has always served you well. Sometimes, not always. Sometimes when you, or at least like from my perspective, because, you know, I'd like to think I'm like a self-starter too. Sometimes when people who are really good, like at what they do, and like, if only they had a little more confidence, they would see how good they are at stuff to get them to like be a little bit more of a starter. Andy Frisella is the guy who has that message that can really kickstart people.
DM that to me on Instagram. That way I can, when you get a chance.
Okay.
I can put that out.
I'll do that.
Yeah, we'll handle that. Well, we know you got dogs that got to go out, my friend. I got that same struggle over here. So we'll go ahead and wrap up this episode. Blake, this was like dope. This was so fun, man.
No, I really enjoyed it.
I don't know how else to put it. Like there's a handful of not clients. Oh my God, special guests that we have on.
Humans.
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 That we have on, that there's just a direct connection. Like we get it. And it's funny because like there's so many dog trainers out here I mentor. They're not friends with other dog trainers. And it's crazy. It's like I grew up in a system where there was 6 other dog trainers around, right? Like that's how I grew up. I grew up from learning from other dog trainers around me. And then I climbed the ladder and I became the manager, and then eventually the academic officer, and I did stuff, right? But like to connect with another dog trainer who knows the struggles, who knows the ins and outs of it, who knows the client struggles, who knows the business struggles, who knows the behavior stuff. It's always an honor and a privilege to be able to just connect and be like, I get you, you get me. We don't even have to fucking know each other personally, but we get each other. And that is one beautiful thing about having this podcast as a platform, is like, we started this a year ago, maybe today. I don't even know. Maybe a year
ago, like a couple weeks ago.
Like a couple weeks ago. Yeah. And this podcast has become bigger than we ever thought it could ever be. And, it's people like you, my friend. And our goal is we want to foster collaboration. We want to foster this conversation. We want to foster education. Like this is the goal of this podcast. And we just are so appreciative of your time, my friend, and sharing all this knowledge. This is probably the longest episode we've ever done.
It's up there. It's rivaling Sean, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to know what's wild is my buddy of mine asked me, he goes, "Oh, that's what you're doing tonight. Do you want to like link up?" And I was like, I can't, because I have to assume that it's going to be 2 hours. If you ever watch Joe Rogan stuff, it can go into
right.
but I don't know if I can ever go there, but this actually flowed way better. I know it was a long time, but it didn't feel like it was like,
right.
Oh my God, like what's going on? So this is pretty cool. I really thank you guys for having me on. One thing I didn't mention before we go is you guys are probably familiar with it, but because of what you're doing, you guys should check out Clubhouse. And
yeah.
I just got, so we're Android guys. We're weird like that. I just bought an iPhone.
Hey, I like my Android.
Hey, yo, shout out to Matt Hubble from K9 Performance.
K9 Performance.
Because he said, yo, you on Clubhouse yet? And I was like, no, not on Clubhouse. So I literally bought an iPhone that day. I just started up on Clubhouse. I'm gonna add you, Blake. I'm gonna add you. Got to get an iPhone, bro. And
I have McKenna's old iPhone.
Oh, let's do it. Let's do it. This
guy sounds like he's like, I really like my fax machine. I love my Android.
I'm
going to get it.
Don't hate on the Pixel, though.
The Pixel is not a fax machine, sir. I love my phone.
Whatever. Anyways,
guys, hit me up on that. This has been great. Let's stay in touch. I'm more than happy to do again. Link up and I just want to help this industry, and learn and be helped by this industry as well.
Yes. Right. It is. There's a little bit of self-interest totally in this. Like me and Mariano have this dream. We want to fly around this country shooting episodes in person with every fucking single one of you guys.
Dope.
So
dope.
That's what we're going
to do. Link up in Hawaii, someplace cool.
Hell yeah. Alaska. Sled dogs.
I mean, if you're gonna
Blake Rodriguez with sled dogs.
If you're gonna twist my arm about it, I guess.
Now, if Netflix wants to make a show, that'd be a hell of a show, y'all.
Yeah. Us hanging out in Hawaii, I'm down for that.
Exactly.
On the beach in Hawaii. All right, guys.
Alrighty, guys. Well, thank you guys so much. If you guys like this episode, make sure that you guys leave a review and share this with at least one other person. And also make sure that you guys send us some of your questions for our up and coming episodes. We would like to thank our very special guest, Mr. Blake Rodriguez from Dream Come True K9. You guys can follow him at Dream Come True K9. That's the letter K and the number 9 at the end. And go ahead and check out his website, www.dctk9.com, and also check out all of his content on the Consider the Dog platform. This guy's an amazing educator. We want to thank you so much for being on the podcast, Blake. And we hope to have you back soon, my friend. Cool, man. We love you so much, and we will connect with you again in the future. You have a wonderful night. And my name is Brent LaBrada. That guy over there is Mariano Alvarez. And thank you again to Mr. Blake Rodriguez for being on the podcast. We love you guys. We'll see you guys in episode 47. Peace.
See you, buddy. Thank you for listening to the Dog Trainers Podcast, a podcast created by dog trainers, for dog trainers, or anyone who's ever fallen in love with man's best friend.
We really hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and we hope to see you back for the next one. But in the meantime, please follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Dog Trainers Podcast. Go ahead and leave a comment. Ask us any questions that you want. We would love to connect with our dog trainer communities all around the world. Take care, guys. We'll see you next time.